Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of Branding Banter, your promotional products podcast where you can get all the nerdy news you need to know about. My name is Jeff Franklin, National Accounts Manager with Headwear USA.
And I'm Meg Gerber, Director of Sales over at Performa.
Sarah Goshgirian Unruh, National Sales Manager at Stolz.
Awesome. Meg Gerber, I see something about Emerson's Mimi.
I just want to make sure that we're not throwing around that G word anymore. I just want to make sure we're clear. Public service announcement.
You're still a grandmother.
Can't wait till you become one in 20 some years.
Yes. Yeah. It's got a ways to go. Ways to go. All right. Well, how is everybody doing? Sarah, I know I've seen this background before, but you look like you're in a closet.
I know. I need to change this up. It's on the list. This is what happens when you move into a new house, is that like this space will probably be the last space that gets fixed. So it's on the list. But
you look like you got some t-shirts back there. Is that like a pressing room or something?
T-shirts. It is. So my office, and so I've got 2 presses in here, and then this is full of hats. So
nice.
I'm locked and loaded, ready to go.
Yeah, I'm not going to dive deep into that wormhole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was saying, tell us you're in the promotional product industry without saying you're in the promotional.
Oh my gosh, I know. Right? Yeah. And sometimes I order things and I forget that I ordered them. I'm sure like I'm not the only one who does that.
That's back there. That's in that corner.
Yeah. Especially apparel. And I'm like, did I really choose that? I don't know. So.
All right. Well, we got an exciting one today, I think. We're going to talk about virtual assistants and sort of how hiring them can really help multiply some of your efficiencies in your business and reduce some redundancies or some of that monotony in your daily activities and really free you up, especially since, again, we're 97% small business here in the promotional products industry. So a lot of times people struggle to take on that next full-time employee. If you're a one-man band, it's a big commitment and a big jump. And so virtual assistants, I think, really comes in and fills that void big time. What do you guys think?
I personally think they do too. I mean, when you engage virtual assistants, I think it's a more strategic way to offer, streamline your operations and really allow the businesses to focus on, like you said, revenue generating activities. I talk about that in a couple of my sessions, and I think the cost of having them really works if you can find one that really meshes with the way you do business. So I don't know. What do you think, Sarah?
No, I agree wholeheartedly on every point that you just made. I think it helps with your efficiencies. I think the number one thing that you have to realize is that you've got to be ready to delegate. And so you have to keep in mind what it is that you're looking to move off of your plate and that you're willing to help train somebody else to take over from a business perspective, because otherwise I think that's where they tend to fail, is because people aren't ready to let go of those ops.
No, I agree. Go ahead.
And Meg, I know that obviously there's, a lot of places for people, there's solo entrepreneurs and, one-man band distributors in our industry to get a virtual assistant without having to be a part of a big group. There's places like DCX. I think Artwork Services also now provides virtual assistants. And there may even be more beyond that. But Meg, I know... Performa and a few other, buying groups and companies also provide your own virtual assistants as well. So maybe can we dive into that a little bit as far as maybe how they're different or why?
Sure. I mean, I know. So I was actually doing a little bit of research ahead of time, and I found 2 others. One of them I hadn't even heard of, actually. It was called From the Desktop, FromTheDesktop.net, and they provide professional admin stuff, technical and creative assistance remotely specializing in our industry. Office Beacon, which we already know because they've been doing it for a long time. I think they were probably one of the very first people to do it that I know of. They were always doing the artwork services for years. And then you Delegate CX. So the one that Performa has, we have one that's called Pro Team Up, and we one of our franchises started it, and they're down in Jamaica actually. So it's just tremendous. And we have a good group of people down there, and they absolutely love their jobs, and they're just There's not a language barrier, which I know is like a lot of people's reservations sometimes. And I think it's just their personalities. I don't know. They're just fabulous people. And I think they're just so excited and be part of the community and be part of our family. So I know even some of them work with our distributor owners, and they even fly them up to holiday parties, or they really make them feel like part of the team, part of like each of the offices. So we love our own, but sometimes we do work with other ones. I know there's some of them in Honduras we were working with. But yeah, I mean, the main ones that I really know are the Office Beacon and the Delegate CX outside of our own proprietary virtual assistant team.
Yeah. I've heard of a couple of others that are not industry specific. And I think those were kind of found early onset. And I know some people have grown their business by employing like an overseas team basically as their outside sales team to go attack and be like the sharks in order to find business.
So I actually was looking at a case study, and it was a client that, and after integrating the virtual assistant into their team, they gained back 30 to 35 extra hours a week, which really plays on what you said, Sarah. You have to be ready to let go. Like, these are all the tasks that I need done that me as a business owner, I am doing. Maybe small business owners, I know when I had my own business, I was doing all of the artwork, all of the sales, all of the billing, everything, right? So if I can take the artwork off, there's like 4 or 5 hours, right? Maybe I could take off all the billing, all the order processing. I mean, there's like 10, 15 hours right there. What would you do in your week if you had 10 to 15 hours back? Like, mind-boggling. Like, that's incredible. So I can definitely see the value when you can look at something and see that. I mean, this one says 30 to 35 hours, but I'm like, God, if I just had 10 or even 5,
yeah,
it'd be incredible. So
yeah, the stats I saw was 13 to 15.
That's incredible.
I mean, that's an incredible amount of time per week. So
yeah, as a small business owner who's doing everything, right? You said 97% small businesses in this industry. What qualifies that? Under like 2-3 million? Is that what it was, Jeff?
I'm not exactly sure what PPAI statistic on that is. I think it's under 2 million, but I could be wrong. It might even be under 1 million. I'm not sure.
And then, I mean, if you look at it, if you're doing, $1 million in sales and you have the opportunity, the ability to hire a CSR, someone to be able to take on all that extra work, that'll just help you really focus on growing those accounts to get to, double or triple your business. I think this is where people definitely overlook it. They try like, oh, I can do it myself, but you really can't. You need help because you have to take those things that are taking up most of your time that aren't generating revenue and pass them off. But you have to know what those are.
I think that's the biggest holdup for some people is because they're doing everything and they've done everything themselves for so long, they have a hard time giving some of that up. And in those situations, I think there's still a huge benefit to hiring a virtual assistant because there's other things that you can have them do. You could basically take your client base and have them, create or submit virtual concepts or spec samples with suppliers. You can have them creating presentations for clients, on a regular basis, direct mail campaigns, whatever it might be. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you can use them for to just be an additional service. But ultimately what you're trying to do, especially as a smaller company or one-man band, you're wanting to get rid of some of those administrative tasks to allow you to sell more. Because the way that I've always understood it was, when you're out in front of clients, it's $400 an hour work. When you're stuck behind your desk, it's $20 an hour work.
Yeah.
The more that you can be out in front of your clients and selling, you're going to make that money back in a heartbeat. If you're getting an extra 15 hours a week, that's a pretty crazy statistic.
I think everybody also has the things that they love to do from a business standpoint, the things that they just dread, right? That, to your point, a lot of it is when they're stuck behind the computer of generating presentations for clients and customers, generating ideas, creating the specs, all the virtuals, everything else, and then sending them to a customer and then getting them back. And then like the monotony of the back and forth. I think a lot of times that's what people dread the most. To your point of like being out in front of the customer, most people in our industry, that's what they love. And it even helps on the supplier side too. So keep going, Meg.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry, I thought you were done.
No, you're good.
So I think, so putting my distributor hat on, and I'm not speaking for all distributors, but just in my own personal, I think when it comes to your own business, like I wouldn't personally want to hire a virtual assistant for the creativity aspect of it, right? Because like the creative design, I think that's part of your ethos. That's part of like what made you come into the promotional products industry almost, right? We are a creative industry. So I feel like, yes, that is something that they can do. They can do the specs, the presentations, the outreach. I don't even know if I would really want them doing all of that. In my head, with my hat, I would be like, you know what, bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the order processing, the order entries, tracking shipments? That's the stuff that just weighs you down. And it's like, that's the $15 to $20 an hour stuff. But I feel like, you know what? Take this. When it comes to creativity, you can't force creativity and squeeze it into an hour window, right? I feel like, oh, hey, that's our favorite little
It's mini me.
little blonde
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't. So yeah, the virtual assistants can be used for it, but I think in my own head, like I feel like with the creativity, when you try to put a time limit on that, it really takes away from it. And it's like when you're a writer, you get writer's block, or you have an hour to write this. I mean, I'm sure that's how people work, but in my own head, having that brain, that creative side things, it's hard to put a time on that. So I would rather, if I'm paying hourly for something, I'd be like, all right, here's the CSR work, here's the order entry work, like here's the mundane tasks that are like, give me the ick. Like, give me the ick.
In my distributor days, that's what we utilized a virtual assistant for. And we were a small team. So we had 3 to 4 of us that were in-house, but we utilized a virtual assistant that really helped. To your point, they were the ones who sent the POs over. So we could type in an email, like, the generals of what they needed in order to be able to generate a PO to send to the suppliers. And then they would track those orders and then follow up with sending the emails whenever the tracking went out. So that way the customers had the tracking, but then also would ping us if we needed to follow up on an order because we hadn't received the tracking beforehand and the in-hand state was getting close. Because when you have a lot of orders in the pipeline, those are the things that that are easy to lose track of. And so that was where we really utilized that virtual assistant, and it helped us tremendously from a growth perspective. I think that was one of the keys to growing our distributorship from a little bit over $1 million to close to $5 million.
That's incredible. Yeah, that lines up with the math that Jeff was just saying. 400 in front, 20 in the office. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So Meg, how does Performa handle virtual assistants? I mean, are there specific tasks that they do, or how is it different than somebody like a DCX?
Well, I mean, I think what we really focus on is like delivering virtual assistants that's tailored to the unique needs of each of our individual franchise owners. So everyone has different needs and they are completely trained. We put them through a brand specialist training. We train them on all nuances of our system, on billing, order entry, all the things. I think it's really important because our system can be complex and it's all proprietary. So we want to make sure that they are fully trained up, and then they are hired, so to speak, by the franchise owners, the distributor owners. So I think I'm sure that's how they do it. I've never actually worked with any of the other ones, so it's hard for me to compare. I know Steven used to work with Delegate CX and used to always talk about how great they were. Like literally, he was like, "No, we love them." So I would say it's very similar, right? Except we have our own internal team, and we just love them. Like we wouldn't trade them out for anything. They're fantastic.
So I've used Delegate CX, but on the supplier side of everything. And so the other side from a virtual assistant is there are a ton of suppliers that utilize the virtual assistants too for different areas of their business. And so I know that process for us was great because you got to interview. So exactly what it was that we were looking for. And so if it was somebody for graphics or somebody for account management, then you could say what the skill set was. And there was a few people that you, just like normal when you're hiring for a regular position, that you get to interview and to assure that they align. And then they do go through like a promo university in which that they are teaching them how our industry works, because it is unique. We have nuances to our businesses. And then like just terminology is completely different of how we utilize a PO and an OA and everything else. And so of what goes to where. But we would utilize them from an inside account manager standpoint. And so there's some things that your account manager, your CSR is handling directly, but dealing with our suppliers from a manufacturer standpoint, they did a lot of that communication back and forth. Same thing, helps fill the gaps in order to make sure that we stay on top of all of the orders that are flowing through the pipelines.
So I think that's important to see what we're doing here. I think, from an overall, 30,000 foot view, what we're doing here on the podcast is we're really trying to show the distributors and suppliers of how you can grow your business of doing different lanes and operational efficiencies or earning new customers or selling to your existing customers and different lanes that you can do to free up your time to work on the tasks that are going to be more revenue generating and how to do that and best practices. So I think this is a really strong lane. I was kind of iffy about it, and so I did some deep dives over the weekend, and I'm like, you know what, this is a really, especially when I saw that case study, and I think that really opened my eyes. I'm like, 30 to 35 hours, what? I mean, because as a small business owner, you're really doing everything, and I'm just like, I don't know, I'm easily sold on some things, but time is money, and time is the most important thing that you cannot get back, and I see that so much more now that I'm like, I have a 25-year-old who just had a baby.
Yeah.
What? Time is gone. So when you're talking 30, 35 hours, I'm like, sign me up.
Yeah. So one thing that I actually just thought about was from a tax perspective, because obviously a lot of these virtual assistants are offshore. How does that work from I guess an employee or 1099 side of things? Do you actually have because clearly they're in another country, they're not paying
That's a good
taxes.
question. I don't know what that looks like because it is usually international. I'm sure that it's something. I'm not privy to that on that side, so I don't know. But I know ours. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to.
It's probably something. Well, there are taxes and things that get taken out of their pay and insurance, and that's part of the reason of working with one of the companies that, like we had all mentioned, is that they're handling that side of it for you. So that way, that guessing work is out of it, and it's included from your fees that you pay on a monthly basis for that employee. The other thing that I think is important to note is that it's just as if you were going to decide that you needed to hire somebody in general from a work standpoint. You have to realize, even though that they're a virtual assistant, and even though, yes, they're trained in the promo industry and they have that knowledge, you still have to train them for what it is that you need to have done. I think oftentimes, if you ever talk with anybody and they've had failed attempts at utilizing virtual assistants, it's because of that lack of training and onboarding, that they don't know what they're supposed to do from a task perspective. And so you have to treat them just like any other employee that might walk into your office on a daily basis. If you don't tell them what to do, they're probably going to walk in at 8:00 in the morning, sitting at their desk, and then leave whenever it's time for them to leave. And they won't do anything because nobody gave them a task to do. So I think it's imperative for you to really break down how you want to utilize this assistant, or the people, whoever it is. They typically have a title of something in order for them to understand what it is that they're going to be doing on a daily basis. Because otherwise, you just hired a body.
Exactly. No, I agree with you, Sarah. And I think it's important to also note that, because I know we talked about some of the things that they do and maybe that they don't do or I wouldn't do, but I think some of the things that you may not think of, which again, I think we're having these conversations and it sparks ideas.
Oh, yeah.
I know that when I'm doing some research or talking to an owner about research, because I'm big on that, like that takes a lot of time, doing these web dives. Like you could hire these virtual assistants to monitor competitors' pricing. You could have them track the trends, even identify new potential suppliers or prospects just through analyzing the data. Like there's so much that they could do, teaching them how to fish and then allowing them to fish. But I think that's so important because, hey, if you're paying like a Zoom Info for these qualified leads, right? And how much are you paying? Are they really qualified? I'm saying Zoom Info. There's no diss on them. I think they're great. I'm just using an example. But like I've heard mixed reviews on all of those. So, but if you have an actual body that's doing the work and putting in the time, like that's so valuable. So there's some other resources, another way.
Well, and you said research, right? And you think about like how long that takes from a prospecting standpoint to have that, to utilize that assistant as a sales assistant to truly be able to like do a deep dive onto their website, see what other clients, what is the look and feel of their business look like. Find them on LinkedIn or various social media aspects in order to give you that information. So it prevents you from having to do the deep dive on all of those sites. And from a time perspective, that right there, I mean, I probably saved at least 2 hours of prospecting So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, anything else, Jeff?
No, I was just going to say, if you guys haven't, at this point considered a virtual assistant or thought about it as an opportunity to sort of reduce some of that monotony in your day to day, I would definitely look into it. I think DCX is probably the main go-to in the industry as far as, the ones that have been around doing it, probably the longest and have that success. But
And they're
again,
good
there's
friends
other
of
ones that
ours
are,
too, right? The
yeah,
owner is
and
good friends of ours in the industry, so we
for
can
sure.
like that.
So again, if you haven't given it a think, I would at least reach out and look into it. It's something that's definitely going to alleviate a lot of time in your day to day. So yeah, that's all I've got to say.
That's all I got.
All right.
yeah.
Well, with that being said, I guess until next time, guys, we'll be seeing you.